Craig, tell us your story.
Just like that.
Just like that. That's how we start. Yep. It's up to you.
Well, on September 28th, 1985.
Wait a second. Your birthday's September 28th?
Yes, it is.
So is mine.
Oh,
But
happy birthday.
yeah, happy early birthday to you. I'm a decade older, I think. You said 1985?
Yeah.
I got a decade on you, 11 years on you. But anyway, that's not what we're here for. Tell us, okay, so you're born in 1985, and then when did you start swimming?
So I got, I guess, a late start to swimming compared to most of my friends. I learned to swim when I was young, but I didn't start swimming competitively till I was almost 14. So basically right upon entering high school-ish, maybe a year before. And from I love the sport right from the start. I think I like the process more than actually competing personally. I like the daily grind more than swim meets, which is why I think I ended up with open water, in open water swimming and marathon swimming, but I'm sure we'll get into that more. But yeah, so I started on the local JCC team, the Piranhas, and I joined, my high school team, and I guess I worked pretty hard because I was able to, in the short span that I was swimming, I was able to swim collegiately at Boston College. My freshman year, so my senior year of high school, someone gave me Lynn Cox's book, Swimming to Antarctica, and that's basically what got me into open water swimming. So I read that book, I'm like, oh, that is so cool. Like, I want to be just like her. That's like incredible. So I started, when I was swimming collegiately, my summer of my freshman year in college, I did my first, I guess, marathon-ish swim, which was, I jumped right in. I went right for a 25K. I don't really.
Nice.
There was no in between. I was like, all right, I'm just going to go right for it. So I did my first 25K, which was in Fort Myers, around like Estro Island, which was nice because the water was quite warm. But we were doing it during hurricane season. So they ended up shortening the course. So instead of going around the island, we had to just do this long back and forth. And I wasn't in over my head. I had a great time, but it was some of the best people in the country there, and then me, which is like the story of my swim career. But for me, it was just about finishing. And after I read the book, got into, I guess a little bit of marathon swimming while I was in college. So I did that swim. Then I did swim across the Sound. I did the Boston Light swim all between my freshman and sophomore years of college. I loved it. Boston Light swim, the year I did it, I think the water was 55, and I was not prepared for it. I was not, I probably weighed about like 40 pounds less than I do now. So I had no insulation, and I didn't have the experience in the cold water. So that was like 3 hours of being hypothermic, which,
oh gosh.
Yeah, it was an eye-opening experience. But so from there, I transitioned. After a couple of years and with like the marathon swimming, I transitioned over to triathlon while I was in college, and then the year after. But in 2008, I got run over by a car while biking and basically like broke my body.
Oh God, that's horrible.
Needed a few surgeries to get back in the game. I did a year. I think 2010. I tried coming back to triathlon. I was fine. I competed really well, but I hated it. It just wasn't fun anymore. And I found that I was slamming on the bike brakes. Like I'd see a car 200 yards in the distance and I'd be like riding the brakes. At that point, I felt like, well, this is actually more dangerous than like having that fear. Like I was proud of myself for getting back on the bike, but having that constant fear, I think puts you at far more risk where if you're riding in a group or you're just making irrational decisions because of fear. So at that point, I tried focusing on running, but I don't like running. It's not as fun.
You finally came to terms with it.
Yeah. And the whole time I've been coaching, I started coaching mainly triathletes. So I think anywhere from 30 to 70-year-old athletes mainly for triathlon swim. So I never really wanted to coach triathlon. It wasn't my thing. I really enjoyed the swimming aspect. and pushing people past their limits. And so I was coaching at the time, and then I guess, I don't know, 5 years went by. 2 years went by. I got asked to be a support swimmer for the English Channel for a friend, and that was in 2012. And he got a decent day, but prior to that, I'd never been seasick before. Like, I've been on boats my whole life, and I'd never been seasick.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot look at a boat anymore without getting seasick. So it was a rough day. He took about 15 hours. So I got about, I think, 8 hours of swimming in. So I got my money's worth, and I left, and I'm like, I'm never doing this swim ever. Like, I want nothing to do with this English Channel. This is horrible. I'm never doing it. And so I took some time off and just focused on coaching and my normal day job. And I think back in 2017, it was like this, I think it was the summer of 2017, I'd coached, hundreds of athletes at that point. They've done like Ironmans and English Channel, half Ironmans. Some of them just learned to swim. And for me, I was like, well, I really wanted to feel that sense of achievement from something that I had been missing for so many years. And I decided I wanted to find something that I figured was challenging enough, had a decent chance of success if things go well and you get a good day, but it's never certain. So at that point, I decided to go for the Catalina Channel. I know the distance is challenging. The water temperature can be challenging depending on the day. So I figured this was a good entry back into marathon swimming for myself. So at that point, I got hooked up with Dan Simonelli, which I'm sure everyone here knows, or at least most of you know. So he was recommended by a friend who met him at a cold water camp he did with Chloe McCardle and Dan. So I connected with Dan, and he had become my coach for, I guess, all 3 Triple Crown swims. I obviously am capable of coaching myself, but I
to have someone else.
I like to take guesswork out. Like, I'm not I still don't find, I don't believe I'm an experienced open water swimmer. Like, I like to, it's like a soldier. Like, you tell me what to do, I'm going to go do it. Like, you have the resume to back, like, it gives you the credibility. So I trust you. So just tell me what to do and I'll go do it. And it was a nice relationship, or it still is. It's a nice relationship because basically he sends me the whole plan from the time we start to the time the day of the swim, and tells me, all right, this is the volume for this week. This is the focus for this week. But then he leaves it to me to actually create the workouts. Mm-hmm. So, and even that at times was probably too much flexibility for me. Cause you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to do like this hard speed workout. And then I don't feel it. I don't do it.
Yeah.
So it was, working with Dan and meeting a lot of other people in the sport, whether it was through Instagram or Facebook. And, it's a smallish community. So many people, when they started seeing I was posting about longer swims and sitting in a cold tub and all this, this, I guess, crazy technique for training, which crazy to, I guess, everyone who doesn't do, right, open marathon swimming or open water swimming. So it was nice to meet so many people and get a lot of, I guess, feedback on things that have worked for others, and then allowing myself to add that into my training plan and, testing different feeds, testing different, I guess, stroke rates and training mechanisms. And I was lucky because I got 3 very good days for my swims and was able to do them on the first try, which is good because I don't think I could afford to do any more. Yeah. Probably the most expensive sport I know.
Yeah, for sure.
So I mean, and that brings me up to today, where I've swum once a week now as I figure out what the next thing is.
That's pretty good. Once a week. Let's rewind a little bit back to getting ready for your first 25K. How did you prepare for that?
So because I was coming off the college season, I think it was more about doing, I had a lot of base and volume under my belt. So it was a lot more just getting in the open water and
Mm-hmm.
getting over some of those fears. I mean, I know as irrational as they are, especially in where I swim up on the North Shore in Massachusetts, we don't have really sharks or anything to be nothing to be concerned about. But when you're new, you don't
Yeah.
know any better, so you're just, it's always in the back of your head. So it was more about getting out there in the open water, getting used to the salt. I have not done a freshwater marathon swim yet, so
Mm-hmm.
all the ones I've done have been ocean, which obviously creates a big problem in your, I guess, oral cavity, which I found out the hard way in my first one. Even with all the training, I never got like that salt mouth that I did from
Yeah.
the very first one, maybe because
Yeah.
Florida water is so much saltier. But yeah, I mean, I basically I piggybacked off of what I had done during the college season. And then I think my longest swim leading up to that was like a 28,000 yard pool swim, which was
Yeah.
horrible. And I've done many more since, but yeah,
Yeah.
so it wasn't anything sophisticated. It was just do a lot of volume. And my swim was not that
Mm-hmm.
fast, but I got through it, and it was a great first experience. But it was probably the wrong first race to do because it was considered the US, I think it was like open water nationals in 2005. So it was like really fast people. I think the Canadian national team was there.
Mm-hmm.
I just had made they gave you a mile. It's like, oh, you have to just do a mile under this time and you automatically qualify. It's like, oh,
Mm.
so I can do,
No
if I can do a
problem.
mile this fast and I can do 25K, I guess that kind of makes sense. But yeah, so there's one guy there, I was brand new to the sport, and he's telling me, oh, like, yeah, I did this last year and I blacked out and woke up, 20 hours later. I'm like, why are you
What?
telling me this? I don't want to hear any of this. But so I guess it was a very competitive event where you have this
Right.
psychological tactics of like what you normally get at a swim meet, but for a
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 hour swim. I'm like, I'm not here to win. I just want to finish.
Yeah.
I'm not your competition, man. But because ever since then, I've never had anyone come up to me and like try to like scare me on purpose,
Right.
like to get in your head. It's always
Yeah.
been positive feedback, like, oh, make sure you're ready for this, or are you ready for this? You should consider adding a night swim to your training, or consider doing this to get ready for the cold.
Yeah.
It's never been to scare you, it's been to help succeed. And that was the one time I was like, how is this helping anyone right now? So but yeah, nothing
Right.
fancy
Yeah.
for that one, just grinding out volume.
Yeah. Why do you think you keep coming back to swim marathons
Yeah,
now?
now, yeah. Well, I think a lot of it for me, I enjoy like I said, I enjoy the process a lot more than the swim itself. For whatever reason, like I like doing the 6 or 7 or 8 hour training swims. I think there's more of a mental, like there's like a mental toughness you have to do that in training, right? Like on the day of the swim, you have adrenaline. It's like, oh, this is what I trained for. And you have all that, the motivation from the year or 2 or 3 years of training and getting to that point. But a 7 hour swim on a day, you just don't feel like doing it because you're tired, or you had work, or you had, just a normal week. For me, like those are like the days where I learn the most about myself. And I really feel like, all right, if I can do a 7 hour swim on like a random Tuesday, like obviously within the plan, then, that's a lot harder than having a 3-week taper, a 2-week taper, and setting everything in your life aside for this one day.
Mhm.
So, you go into the pool or the ocean with the stress of every day on those normal training swims. So I enjoy that. But it's really hard to do a 7 hour swim if you're not training for something either, right?
Right. Yes.
Why would you put yourself through that if you don't have to? And some people love it. I guess I don't love it that much.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I keep coming back to it. It's something that I enjoy, like that grind, but I also enjoy, it forces you to like reflect internally. at yourself and who you are and how you can grow, not, not just a swimmer, but as a person, and how the sport kind of changes you as you evolve within it. So I really enjoyed that process, and seeing, even just going from Catalina to English Channel over the past 3 years, just seeing how I've evolved as a swimmer, but also as a person as well, and how I've been able to take some of what I've learned from training and applying it to just like my everyday work life. It's, especially this year with COVID, where everyone's like, oh, you're never, like, I think I had maybe 2 or 3 people like truly supporting the swim, and everyone's like, oh, you're never going to go. It's never going to happen. Like it's like, you're not going to get the training in. And I found a way to get training in. And like, you're not going to get to England. I found a way to get to England. Like everything they told me I couldn't do, it was almost like this big win mentally and internally for me. And I'm sure many of you kind of experienced it this year, where everyone's like, oh, you can't train, you can't do this. And yet I'm still people, I had I don't know who knows him, but like Guy Davis just did the English Channel yesterday, or I guess last night. And you still see all these people doing the swims, and like Caroline did her huge swim, a few days ago, a week ago. And so, I think that's what makes me continue to come back to it, is just learning what I can do internally and trying to block out people who don't really support you. And that's something that I found transfers into all parts of my life, at least. And I've learned that more this year than any other year. But if this year were my first channel swim, I don't know what I would do. I think I would have, I don't know if I would have done it, to be honest. Not having the experience of the past couple of years and all the obstacles that you experience on a normal year. I think that prepared me probably best for a very unique year, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Part of why I started Marathon Swim Stories is because I feel like there's a lot of things that people can learn from marathon swimmers to get through life. But it's just continually impressed me the more I talk to more marathon swimmers, and there's marathon swimmers still out there, and they're overcoming everything this year, like you did, to go to England, and like Vera went to England, and Guy, and it's just like, it's amazing. I mean, marathon swimmers are just forces of nature. It's lovely.
Well, the monetary investment is a big driver too.
That's Sarah Thomas said that.
It's happening. I'm going.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so true. How do you describe that feeling of completing a marathon swim?
I think I don't know. I've had some trouble with the latest one. Catalina was the most excited I think I'd ever been to finish a swim. I just I think it was because it was like a fairly well-known, respectable swim in like the marathon swim community. And that was my first really, really big one after a very long hiatus. And coming back from injuries and my accident and all of that, I think that one was amazing. I finished it. I was like almost in tears. I was so happy. I was like, this is amazing. This is why I set out to do it. And then, that feeling of accomplishment, I was like, oh, I feel like I could ride this forever. And then I'm sure you all know, 2 weeks later, it's like, all right, well, that's over. Now what? And, nothing's ever good enough. And then, at that point, I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to swim again. I'm happy with what I did. And then someone's like, you should probably look at, the 20 bridges. Cause everyone had, I'd been watching it. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do it. And I figured, okay, well, 20 bridges, you have to apply, you have to get accepted. I don't really have a big resume other than Catalina. So swim resume. So I'll apply anyway, and I'll let fate decide if I'm going to do it or not. So at that point, I think I can't remember when I found out I got in. I was like, oh, I guess we're going to New York now. I think New York was a very different swim. I don't know, I just didn't have a great day. It wasn't the challenge, I guess, to me that I was hoping it would. It wasn't to me as hard or as difficult as Catalina was. And we got a day where the water was 75 degrees. It just felt like, oh, I'm swimming in a pool. And I think when I looked at the pace, I'm like, yeah, there was, I knew it was a current assist. So I'm like, oh yeah, to swim 53 seconds per 100. I don't even do that in 100 yards anymore. Like, so to do that for, 7 hours, you're like, it felt like kind of took something away from me. So at that point, I'm like, I had 2 of the 3 done. I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're doing the English Channel. And I think COVID kind of took away from it a little bit because it's not the experience you envision. You envision going with your crew and finishing, and like, if you finish, you go and you celebrate with your friends or your family or whoever's crewing for you. And I went by myself at first because I worked remote anyway. So to go wasn't a big deal for me. Like I could work from there. I just shifted my hours. And so it wasn't like I had to take a month off, but I think just the stress and anxiety leading up to it was like just getting, like the normal English Channel problem is, the weather. You get there, it's like, you might not get in because the weather's bad. I didn't even think about the weather until the day I was supposed to swim, because I was doing so many other obstacles this year. And it just was so mentally like exhausting just getting there that when I got to the start, I'm like, oh my God, I'm here. That was like the big feeling. And so when I finished, for these boat captains, a lot of them, it's like business as usual. They're like, all right, like, get on the rock, get off the rock, get in the dinghy, and we're going home. Like we got to flip the boat, and we gotta go to the next person. So I think eventually my dad did decide to come, did the quarantine. So he was like my crew. But it kind of just, it took away from it. So I didn't have that like, oh my God, I'm done feeling. It was, okay, now I want to get home before they close the country. So that was my every concern was, all right, how am I going to get there? All right, how am the swim going to happen? All right, the swim's happening. Are they going to close the border and I'm not going to be able to get home? Right. So it was like, you're always looking at like the next stress. So I didn't necessarily have that like amazing feeling when I finished. But looking back on it, I'm really proud of what I had done. And I know there are people who are doing so much more and crazier things. So it's my Facebook feed is like watching people doing like, these just insane swims. I'm like, I really don't know if I should feel proud of this or not. And everyone's like, no, you need to feel proud of it. Like, especially given the year of training and, the winter swimming to prepare for all of this, because that's all you could do. And so looking back on it, I've kind of come to terms with my experience, and I'm so happy that I did it, and I'm proud of myself for doing it. But that elated feeling that I was kind of chasing after Catalina, it wasn't there. And maybe that's an experience thing. Maybe that goes away until you do something ridiculous, like, 100 something like that, which I don't think is in the cards for me, but we'll see.
That's okay. You should be proud of all your swims, but which one are you the most proud of?
Yeah, I mean, I think English Channel, just because of I was the most prepared for it. I think I had learned so much from my prior years, the prior 2 years of training, that it was actually like a far less stressful day than I expected it to be, which I think, well, I got lucky at a nice day, but I think I prepared very well for it. And I think that made me happy that I made it there. I made it injury-free, and I got to enjoy like just being out there, which is something I missed on the other two swims. And even the swims before that, I never enjoyed it. I never took a moment to be like, oh, I'm like, this is cool. Like there's no one else around me, or like there goes like the shipping tankers. And so I think English Channel is probably the most proud of.
Yeah. Is there any swim that you didn't finish?
Not yet, but I'm sure there will be one. It's only a matter of time.
Where's your favorite place to swim?
Favorite place to swim? I like my swimming hole. I like where I train. I train in Swampscott, Massachusetts, which I don't expect anyone to know. But it's this nice like bit of coastline. It's pretty well. It's not really protected, but it doesn't have a ton of boat traffic. And like to drop a kayak in and just swim up and down the coast between Nahant and Marblehead it's like a 4 or 5 mile stretch, and the current is never the same. And you get some pretty choppy conditions. So I really enjoy where I swim, and the water stays relatively cold year round. I mean, I think mid-July, it's 64, 65, same, in August too. So it's perfect for the type of swimming we all do. And then I also train there in the winter. So that's why I really like it. It's just a convenient spot. It's kind of a local spot. Not a lot of people are there. So that's why I enjoy it. So I think home is where I like swimming the most.
Yeah. Yep. How has your swimming, as it's evolved, how has that influenced your coaching?
Um, I I think it's helped in a lot of ways. I think I put a larger emphasis on like the mental side than the physical. And trying to, really get people away from like performance goals. I like performance goals. That's what, competitive swimming is. It's hitting a goal, a goal time. But in triathlon, like you're racing. So it's not about like going a certain time. And of course, like I got to beat these people, but you have no control over the conditions or who's in the race. So trying to get people to shift their thinking more towards like, no, like, what do you want? I want to come out of the swim feeling fresh, or I want to come out of the swim having swum straight or line, like things that they really can control for the most part. So I've shifted more to like the mental side and, getting people to get past their comfort zone and really, push them beyond like what they thought was possible. Like the other night, I have mostly triathletes. They swim, a couple times a week, and I did my first group night swim. I'm like, look, I've done night swims for my own training. I think it's a really fun experience. You all know how to swim. We had kayaks and we had everyone with the glow sticks, and we did we made sure it was really safe. But I was like, you need to experience this. And I'm like, but when you do this, I want you to experience it. So I don't want you swimming fast. I want you swimming at a very comfortable pace. We're staying with the group, and let's do something different. And, getting people interested in that is a hard sell for people who aren't like us, where you're just not just a triathlete, but where you're used to certain things. And so I've been really trying to throw new experiences at them, where if it's rough out, we go swimming. If it's windy, if it's choppy, we go swimming. So I've really tried to incorporate embracing the environment, being comfortable in all conditions, knowing how to stay calm, stay mentally focused, and focusing on what you can control. Those are what I've taken the most from marathon swimming and incorporated into my coaching specifically, because those are relatable. I'm not going to get, of the people I coach, if I can get one of them to be excited about a 10K, that's great. But if I can get everyone who's excited about going in the ocean, that's way better, because then they have something they're comfortable with and they can do forever. And that's actually what I want. And eventually maybe they'll do 10K or the marathon swims, but I don't push that. I know that's a special type of person.
Yeah. But it's, I think for me too, coaching, I've found that just like adapting it to pushing yourself, like having people own their own experience, just the way you said it. It's really, really well said. I think that's where, I don't know, that's where we can all improve, right? We can only improve ourselves. You can compare yourself to other people, but that gets destructive after a while.
Yeah, it's not great. I had to stop the whole face. I'm just like, I can't keep watching everyone. Like, it's exciting to watch everyone, but I'm like, oh no, I feel really bad about myself because I'm not doing enough. And it's hard.
Yeah, I know what you mean. What about when like the going gets tough, you're out there in a swim, how do you adapt to rough conditions, or the mental game when you're out there? What's that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think that's all, we all like a challenge. I like it, but I think there's one thing that Dan said to me before Catalina, and the past 3 years has gotten me through so many things. And he just said, just when he's like, when things are going wrong, he's like, just remember, like, he said, just keep swimming, because just because you feel a certain way now doesn't mean you're going to feel that way in 15 minutes or a half hour. And that's advice that I when I feel that way, I'm feeling like I'm struggling or I'm not going to finish. I'm like, just ride it out. Just ride it out. You're going to come out the other side. At this point, the only way out is through. So, and that's gotten me through a lot, especially in training, where you're just like, oh my God, like I don't want to do the next hour. I'm not feeling it. Or I'm freezing and I just want to get out because I can see like the beach is right there. And it's gotten me through a lot of, I guess, challenging situations. Not dangerous, but challenging. I think there's a difference knowing when things are really dangerous and you need to get out versus I'm just having a bad day. I think comes with experience, obviously, but that's how I get through it. I just tell myself, all right, just because you're cold now doesn't mean you're going to be cold in 15 minutes. And that really has worked. Just about all my swims, even like with the winter swimming, that's a little different because you do have to be a lot more cognizant of how you're feeling, because it gets you 20 minutes after you swim versus during the swim. So, but yeah, that's what I do. And that's what I tell my swimmers. I'm like, just because you're tired now we're not feeling great now doesn't mean anything in the next half hour. Like just ride it out. You'll be fine.
Right.
And most of the time you are. And I guess there is that risk that you're not going to be, but at least you tried.
Yeah. But I think that those little mental hurdles do come up, it's just that, I don't know, it's just kind of acknowledging that your body can do a lot more than you maybe initially think you can. And but letting yourself kind of feel those thoughts when they come, I think is important too. Be like, yeah, I just feel crummy right now, but like you said, you just you stick with it, and then you get to a different feeling if you're in there long enough.
It's a better feeling. It's a different feeling.
Right.
People are like, oh, what about jellyfish? I'm like, I like when they sting me because I'm not thinking about my shoulders hurting. Or not thinking of, as long as it's not like a box jellyfish or like lion's manes, I'm like, yes, you can sting me all day. I don't care. It's better than shoulders hurting or something, or being cold.
Right. New perspective on jellyfish stings. I love it. How has your swimming technique evolved at all as you've had over your career?
Yeah, I think I'm a smarter swimmer now. I focus a lot more on technique because I'm older, obviously, than I was in college. So, things work differently. And this year, though, was weird because because all the pools were closed and I was doing like heavy training. And in Massachusetts, like the water up until May was 42. So even in a wetsuit, at most I could get in was like an hour and a half. So I did a lot of tethered swimming in like hours. And that really messed with my stroke and my stroke rate, where it wasn't necessarily a flat stroke, but my stroke rate went from maybe 60 strokes per minute to 75. Which affected my feeds, which I didn't know. I didn't think of. I just didn't make the connection. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling so, like, I switched to open water. I'm like, I'm feeling so tired. I'm like depleted. What's going, like, I'm doing my food plan. What's going on? And then Dan pointed out, he's like, your stroke rate is like so high. Like you need to eat more. I'm like, oh, that's surprising. Cause historically, like I look back at my log and I'm like, yeah, historically it'd been like 60 strokes per minute. Now I'm at 75 consistently. And a lot of that was because just with the tethered swimming, just got to keep the arms moving. And so whether it's a good adaptation or a bad one, I is unclear, but I had to, I guess, embrace it because it wasn't changing, and then change how I did my feeds and other things to make up for it. But yeah, I mean, just a heavier emphasis on technique to reduce injuries. And that's really been the big thing just the past couple of years. Whereas younger, I'm like, I didn't care. I just wanted to go fast. I don't care how ugly it is. And now I'm like, no, I want it to be really pretty so that my shoulders are less likely to just be destroyed.
Right. Yeah. I guess like I started, one of the books I read was talking about like swimming anatomically correct. And I think that is, because we want to swim forever, at least I do. And I don't, so your shoulders are made to move in that motion and in your swimming motion, but as long as you're going, doing the motion the right way and you're not going, outside of your body and whatever. So I started talking about it as swimming anatomically correct. What was your stroke rate like? So when you went from tethered swimming back out to ocean swimming, did you find that your stroke rate changed again, or did you maintain that high stroke rate from?
I maintained the high stroke rate. That was like the big step. I figured, oh, like I don't know. I feel like most open water swimmers who train in the pool have like two different strokes. Like you have your pool stroke and your open water stroke. And I was like, oh, I'll be fine. No big deal. And I wasn't fine. Like I instantly was like, oh, something's weird. Like my timing, everything was just off.
Yeah.
And then I started looking and I was like, oh, this is definitely different. And, you know, you just had to get used to it. But there was no way I was going to back it down because I was swimming okay and I felt fine. And I guess given that a lot of people couldn't even swim because pools were closed for so long, I wasn't complaining. I just made the best of it. But yeah, no, I didn't try to change anything once I got out there. I just tried to get comfortable. And that was really my goal this year was get the swims done, be comfortable, and don't get hurt.
Yeah. What motivates you to keep going?
What was that?
What motivates you to keep going?
I think I like the challenge. You know, I think for me, the only real swim I want to do an ice mile this year. Like I like to challenge myself in different ways. Swimming seems to be a good one because I enjoy the actual activity of swimming. Like I can wake up at 2 a.m. and swim, or I can swim at noon. Like it does, you know, it doesn't matter. But if I want to go running, I'm like, nah, I can't. I got to go running at a certain time because my body needs time to wake up. And I think, you know, it's just that having that break from Facebook and Instagram and like your phone and computer and work, like, and just being like with your own thoughts. That's what I really love. And having a goal makes it easier just to have a reason to get in every day beyond that. So I think that's what keeps me going. I like having a goal. I enjoy the sport, but I also like that I can achieve these things, learn about myself, and also get a break from the current world, which is much needed many, many times. It becomes exhausting and depressing when you watch too much of it.
Yeah. Put the phone down.
Everything just off.
Yes, exactly. How can we include more people in the sport?
It's a good question. You know, I don't know. I think it's hard, you know, it's hard to say because I know, like, for me personally, like my program, we teamed up with One with the Ocean. They're a charitable organization. Their goal is basically like marine conservation and keeping the oceans clean. So all of our swims start with a beach cleanup, and then we do a swim, and they're free to everyone, which I think is a great start. But that's great for people who know how to swim, and I think there's a lot of underserved communities that just learning how to swim is a big deal. And I think that's, you know, USA Swimming tries to do a lot with that, and I know One with the Ocean does work with that. So, you know, I think those are good starting points, but swimming, other than Olympic years, especially marathon swimming, just isn't like a mainstream like sport. And it's hard because I think a lot of us, we're always following marathon swimmers, so we think everyone's seeing it. I was like, well, if I'm seeing it, everyone's seeing it. But you say the name like Chloe McCardle, people are like, who the hell is that? Like, I don't know who that is. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know who that is? She's like, famous in our sport. She's like, yeah, I don't know your sport. So I think it's a lot, you know, it's a grassroots movement for people in the sport to, when people show an interest, when they do a big swim, to be like, oh, you come join me for so many time. Oh, you don't know how to swim? You know, I'm happy to show, you know, teach you a little bit and get you going. And I think it's just like a grassroots movement, unfortunately, because I don't think, you know, all the charities are great, and it's just not a marketable sport the same way that, you know, hockey or football or baseball are, just because that, I mean, it is marketable. It's just historically hasn't been, because people, if you're in Europe, it's huge. You know, it's wild swimming is a huge movement. So, but I think even wild swimming probably was a grassroots movement. So I think it's on us to really get out of our comfort zones and talk to people who don't do this and try to get them, you know, involved with with us. And maybe we learn something in return by getting out of our comfort zone and doing something that they like too. So I think that's kind of the best way to do it, but I don't have a good answer.
You did. Those were great answers. I love it. That's awesome. What advice would you give to aspiring marathon swimmers?
Talk to everyone, like anyone in the sport, just reach out. Everyone, I've never had anyone say, I don't want to talk to you. Like I've never reached out to someone on Instagram and be like, oh, I'm planning to do the swim. And I've never turned anyone down who's at, like, especially this year with the quarantines, all the boat captains are like, can you talk to the American swimmers coming? Because you're the first American this year. You did the quarantine, like they're freaking out. Would you mind? So like, just talk to everyone and don't be scared of failing. Those are like the two main things. I think if you can learn from the failures and you talk to all these people, you're going to make a lot of friends. You're going to build a really strong community around you, and you're going to do some cool stuff. So those are my two big pieces of advice that I try to live by, and it's worked out okay so far.
Yeah. Yep. What marathon swimmer has inspired you?
I think the big two obviously Lynn Cox, because that's why I started open water swimming, was her book. And then Sarah Thomas. I just think she's like incredible. And it's really fun. It's not funny. I know this about the sport, but I think to outsiders, I look up and like want to be so like, the female swimmers are just so like, they're doing the cool things. I'm like, I want to be just like them. Like that's like, whenever someone says, who should I follow? I'm like, go follow like Catherine Breed, or go follow, Chloe McCardle, go follow these people, because they're doing incredible things that I can only really dream of. And I think those are the people that we should be looking up to in this sport. So I think those are, the real inspiration has been those two mainly, just seeing what they've overcome over the years and the cool things that they've done. And like, that's what I want to do. I want to be like them.
I love it. I love it. I hope I can come to Boston sometime and swim with you. That'd be so much fun.
Well, it's a good time. Just cold.
Oh, there was a question about adapting to the cold. Any specific recommendations you have on adapting to cold?
So for me, I just get in all year round, and you just kind of, it's never fun, but you get used to it, and like your body starts adapting as the water gets colder. I also have a cold tub. My dad works for a bottling company, so he has like all these industrial like shipping containers for fluids. I'm like, oh, can I have one? It's like literally like a 5x5 thing. I threw it in my garage. I filled it with hose water, and unfortunately, I have no way of controlling the temperature. So in the winter, it gets down to like 36 Fahrenheit. So I just get in every day and I suck it up. But cold baths have been huge too. It's just a matter of getting in and doing it consistently. And I personally have not got to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, this feels great. It always sucks for me. But I'm hoping one day I'll be like all the other ice swimmers who are like, yeah, it's not that bad. I'm like, all right, well, guess I'm not there yet.
I don't know. Is there anyone that actually says that?
I think they're full of crap.
Maybe just get used to it. Like you said, you just get used to that feeling like, oh yeah, and then I'm going to feel this way when I get in here.
And I think that's, the cold stuff, it's not even like, you get to the point where maybe the swimming part isn't bad. Like I've gotten comfortable with like 36 degrees swimming, but I know I'm like, okay, I need to get out now because I know I'm going to be shivering for an hour in 20 minutes. So it's more, I'm thinking, okay, just because I'm not cold doesn't mean bad things can't happen. So,
right.
Your body adapts, but you still have to be cognizant of the signs of hypothermia and after drop, and making sure you're completely safe and know how to warm up. So, but yeah, just keep getting in. That's what I do. And it works. It works for the most part.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time today, Craig. It's awesome to hear your story.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.